like handbags to me, to be frank with you. Let's get on with Argentina.
Absolutely. Well, I think congratulations as well to Jack Miller, who recently got engaged over the weekend, I think it was, on social media. So clearly he's not letting the argument get on his mind too much. He's carrying on with his life. So good on you, Jack. Big news, I suppose, is coming out as well that we need to touch on. And the argument has been rolling on for Grand Prix after Grand Prix, front ride height devices. And Pete, well, we've got news, officially banned from the start of next year. But you've been trying to find out some things, but people don't really want to talk about it, do they?
No, it seems that they don't. We've got, it's a bit like with the decisions you get from race directions sometimes, or the FIM stewards, I should say, where you get the verdict but not the explanation for it. And that's kind of where we're at with this. We know the verdict. We know that the front ride height systems only, not the rear, and not whole shot devices, which they sort of define as single use, meaning the start of the race. So they'll all be fine. So this is only the front ride height system, which as far as we know, only Ducati have available at the moment. So that's banned from the start of next year. It seems like that there was 2 alternative proposals were given, and they were sort of asked to pick between them. Now, we don't know what those proposals were, but this is the one that was chosen. So there we are. It says unanimous agreement, but then that doesn't actually mean that there was unanimous agreement within the manufacturers. It means there was unanimous agreement within the Grand Prix Commission. So just, yeah, as Keith thought, he said, it's a very different thing. So I think some people saw unanimous and thought, oh, everyone's happy. Probably not.
Now, the Grand Prix Commission have actually got some teeth. It seems like they've actually shown their teeth on this one, haven't they? And there'll be a lot of people that kind of say, well, hang on a second, this is prototype racing. We should be able to have this. If it's within the rules, we should be able to have it. I don't agree to some extent. I mean, I think that the shapeshifter at the front, the ride height thing at the front was just a step too far. It was something that we would never see on road bikes. It's not something that will be of any benefit for the road or anywhere else really as a development. And the case scenario really is that it's just giving an opportunity for those bikes to be even faster, down that straight into that next corner, making runoffs that little bit more dangerous from the fact that we're not increasing runoffs at the same pace as we're increasing the performance of the bikes into and out of corners. That eventually is going to have a crossover on the old graph, isn't it? The tracks that have always been deemed safe for so many years are suddenly going to become slightly unsafe, and it's something that FIM Dorna Erta have always been really, really behind. The safety of the MotoGP series is above all other series in the world. It is the safest track series that there is. And again, that lines itself up with the prototype thing. This is, these are the very best motorcycles, the fastest motorcycles, the most technologically advanced motorcycles. So taking a decision like this goes against the grain a bit with some, because it's a development, it's a prototype development that enhances a motorcycle to get the best out of it. But it's one that in my view, and I think I've made that clear in previous podcasts, I think was a step too far. I think that we needed to clamp down on it. And I'm amazed that the Grand Prix Commission have. You're right, Ducati will be livid because they can't ban something in the same year unless for a safety reason. They can't ban something in the same year straight away. They have to wait until the next year. So all the money that Ducati have spent will only be of an advantage, if it is an advantage, in 2022. If they hadn't banned it, everybody else could have caught up, obviously, next year. But the money you need to spend on something like this is huge for the teams as well. So there's a financial issue and a safety issue for banning it. And personally, I think they've done the right thing.
I just wonder if does it go far enough, though, in terms of this top speed issue, which you've described absolutely perfectly there, Keith. I mean, a front whole shot device, you're talking a couple of K maybe when they get it working. I mean, you hit a barrier at the end of a straight, at 250 or 254. I don't know. It comes back to this question of what's the fairest way to slow the bikes down, isn't it? And I think this is fiddling around the edges a bit. I'm not saying it's not worth doing, but I think bigger decisions need to be taken down the line to really maybe not 2 seconds off the lap times or something like that. And are we going to need a rev limit one day? It always keeps coming back, isn't it? How do you slow the bikes down, with the fairest possible way? Because I think, this, as you say...
Don't you think that might be coming? Don't you think that might be coming, though, Pete, with fuels? I mean, I have the feeling that, I don't think there's a lot of traction in the paddock for electric bikes and hybrid bikes and stuff like that as there are in the car world, I get the feeling that we are going to be working towards different organic fuels, which are going to be kinder to the environment, which are going to have less performance, not possibly because of the way they ignite, but the way that the degradation within engine parts by using these things. You can't use the same kind of compression ratios. You can't use, there's lots of different setup things that you've got to do to run these more organic fuels, which are going to bring that perhaps lower speeds that we're looking for. And I think somewhere in the back of the minds of the brainy ones that are in the paddock, that they'll be working towards that, is what I feel.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Keith. I mean, that would work out perfectly, wouldn't it, if they can tick both boxes at the same time like that? I think the only concern with this fuel is that it's so far away, isn't it? I think some people would like to see this being introduced a little bit sooner, because it seems like a great idea.
You're right, and that's a good point, Pete, because this won't take next year to work its way through. They're going to have to work the regulations out and work out exactly what they're going to do to give the engineers enough time to cope with these changes. And that could be, like you say, quite a long way down the road. It ain't going to be 1 year down the road. It's probably going to be 3 or 4. So we might be going too fast for 2 or 3 years before we all start coming back to reality.
Well, we'll see how it all unfolds, shall we? What's going to be happening in the future too is Sepang, Malaysia. That has been confirmed with a contract extension, Pete, which looks like it's going to go until at least 2024, but with options to go even further than that. I'm a big fan of Malaysia, obviously coming from the four-wheeled side of things. I think it's a shame that Formula One don't race there anymore, but brilliant to see MotoGP will continue there in Sepang. Oh,
well, that'll be the reason. It's the exact reason why they're fighting for MotoGP, because they haven't got Formula One. They dumped Formula One on their head and decided to let it go, and they went down the bikes road. Don't forget, CEO of Sepang was Razlan Razali originally, now the owner of, or the top of management team for the Yamaha satellite team. I thought Sepang were incredibly brave a couple of years ago when they dumped F1.
Was it that way round?
I thought they were incredibly brave.
Was it that way round?
I think at the end of the day, if you can't come to an agreement, somebody had to decide that, we weren't going there. And I think that if Formula One dumped Sepang, it was because Sepang wasn't prepared to dance to the tune that Formula One gave them. So I think effectively, even if one fired, a bit like a divorce, really, it doesn't matter who's actually pulled the trigger, does it? It's come to an end because someone's decided not to act in a way that the other person wants. So, I mean, I never find any blame in a divorce. I might do around here if I ever have to.
What about the children, anyway. Keith? Think of the children. But
what about the children?
But so you're very happy then, obviously, Sepang continues on MotoGP calendar.
Oh, Sepang's a fantastic venue. Malaysia is a fantastic country. It's a great place to go to. Hang on a second, what's not to like? The airport is 15 minutes away. It's not on race day, of course. It's bloody hard work to get to because it's a nightmare getting backwards and forwards. But the main Kuala Lumpur International Airway, KLIA or whatever it is round the corner, literally round the corner. When you fly in, you're looking down over the track and all them horrible palm trees that they've ripped all the good stuff up and murdered the gorillas for the palm oil. But anyway, we won't go there.
That's a different podcast.
But it's a different one, yeah. But I think Sepang International Raceway is just a great place. Fast corners, uphill, down dale as well. There's a couple of corners that were made for F1, but they work for bikes as well. The final corner, which Dromo bloody, I won't say ruined, because they had to do it because they couldn't get the drainage on the inside of the track. So instead of having the normal angle that you get, they tipped it the other way. So the apex of the corner is the high bit, and the water runs away to the outside of the track, so that we didn't have a lake there every time it rained. And I remember, what's his name, Zeffirelli, the Italian that runs Dromo, said that what he'd worked out was that you could run a wider line around the lesser adverse camber than you could on the inside. But he was talking cars, I think, not bikes.
The other interesting thing about that corner, though, going back to our previous discussion, they also made it like that to take the top speed down, wasn't it? They realised they couldn't extend the runoff at turn 1, and so they killed the corner speed And that was another reason for making the sort of strange off camber there, and it has worked. I think if you look at the top speeds, they did drop, didn't they?
Weird though.
I believe they also
But
have the ability to make it a night race in Sepang these days with lights all around. I think I've seen pictures of it previously. I think they might do a night race in sports cars, I think, but it looks epic under the lights. I think it would be quite nice if MotoGP did it.
I'll tell you what.
Busy track. Yeah, it's a busy track. Even in you see group cycling and things like that. They keep that. There's track days. There's non-motorsport days. They keep things going on there all the time. Yeah.
It's a great venue and really an important venue worldwide as well. I mean, like, you're not far away from Kuala Lumpur City. Like I say, the international airport just around the corner. It's got everything you want on its doorstep. They've got, hotels, golf courses, if that's what your part-time effort is. It's got what you need. Highly recommended.
The big question, I guess, is for all of these races. I mean, Sepang was another one that was sold out on race day, wasn't it? Pre-COVID. We were talking about the fan numbers at Mandalika in Indonesia, 60,000. We don't know what Buriram, Thailand. We're all waiting for these big crowds to come back, aren't we? And when this announcement came out about the contract extension, they're making clear they're trying to, welcome back and restart motorsport. And I think there will be a few, this is the post-Rossi era as well. There will be a few fingers crossed about how many people are they going to get through the gates here,
I think Mandalika made a mistake. I think their prices were too high and they're too far away at the moment, and there's not enough infrastructure still at trackside as far as hotels and the like are concerned. And the hotel prices were crazy for Mandalika as well. So they've got that transition period to go through to get that right. I think Sepang got that right. I think their ticket prices are quite good. Thailand went a bit high in the first place, but I think numbers are up. Thailand suffers from a governmental problem in that they can't make their bloody mind up what they want to do and when they want to do it. That's the problem. Nobody knows, whether you're an airline or anybody trying to make plans going into Thailand, what the situation is going to be every time you fly in there. Are you going to have to do a 1 day and a 5 day test? Are you going to be allowed to do a PCR test, or is it going to be a quick antigen test? There's so many things in Thailand at the moment. You live there, Pete. I know people that live there. We've got family that live out there. It's an absolute nightmare. We don't know what's going on, and we're really well linked in with the place. So how can you expect people to be flying internationally into places like that? It's just a nightmare. The government really should sort themselves out and take a longer term view of these things.
I was just going to say, I'm back in the UK this week, Keith. But, yeah.
He's back.
When are you back in the UK?
I'm flying tomorrow.
Oh my God, that's big news!
Hey!
There we are.
That's the biggest news on this podcast.
I did tell you guys, and you obviously don't listen. So
no, we knew you were sort of thinking about it, but you didn't give us a date.
So how long have you actually been based in Udon Thani?
I've been based since COVID began, since the cancelled 2020 Thai Grand Prix. Yeah.
Wow.
And then it was a case of waiting. Vaccinations took a long time to happen over here, I should say. So it was a case I have asthma and things like that.
All I can say, Pete, is you must only go out at night because you ain't got a tan.
I'm not a sunbather, Keith, and there's no beaches around here, as I've discovered. So yeah.
Well, there's a lovely lake in the middle of Udon Thani that you can lay out, and then there's a jogging track around the lake. You don't do any of that.
Only at night for Pete. Only at night.
He haunts the Udon Thani lake.
Well, I think that is the biggest news. Look for the article on crash.net soon. Pete McLaren's return to the United Kingdom. And as much as excellent news as that is, well, let's look ahead to Argentina. So that will be, hopefully, what's the time difference? That'll be all right for you now, Pete, won't it? Back in the UK covering that. So
I think it's was it UK European time? It's sort of a Sunday evening race,
but a nice Sunday, like a dinner time almost. But lots of things to look forward to in Argentina. Of course, a return for the first time since COVID. So Pete's returning, Argentina's returning. There you go. But somebody who won't be there. Well, still no news on Marc Marquez just yet. But somebody else who won't be there, Keith, down in Moto 3. We discussed this a few podcasts ago. John McPhee set to miss Argentina, hoping to come back for Texas. He's just not ready yet.
He's dripping the news out, isn't he? I mean, I said last podcast, he got a bit annoyed with me because I fired it out on Twitter as soon as I had the lists and everything for the weekend, and that his team had already decided they weren't going to replace him when he first announced it. Or rather, he didn't, but everyone else did. and he seems to be reluctant to let that process go through, which means that the prognosis obviously is slightly tougher than he originally thought. He's desperate to get back. This will be his last year in Moto 3. And if he doesn't have a good year, it might be his last year in GPs. That won't be lost on him, I'm sure of that. He needs a really stonking, it's not over yet. We've got a long season still ahead. But really, McPhee needs to go out with race wins this year to show his performance, to show what he's capable of, and move up to Moto 2. He's got no other options. He can't stay in Moto 3 for another year. He's 28. That's the cutoff now for the start of a new season. If you're 28 at the beginning of the season, you're no longer in Moto 3. You can be 28 halfway through the season, but that is the cutoff. And quite rightly too, I must say. He must be going through hell at the moment, John McPhee. I feel desperately sorry for the bloke. It's one of them situations where he's a quality rider, one of Britain's best riders in Grand Prix. And yet, he's in this terrible situation where he's still young. He's sub 30, so he's still young as far as I'm concerned. He's still got.
Hang on, you were saying 22 was old last week.
It was what? Yeah, well, I mean, I think I'm comparing with British guys, and I'm comparing with the new rules that says that you have to be 18 upwards. So I've made an excuse there.
Okay, fine.
I suppose, yeah, you're right, Harry. 22. If you've got tons of experience and you've been through the Junior World Championships and the rest of it, you can be a veteran at 22 in this game now. That's a fact, because you're in it from 16. You're in it from younger than that if you're in the Junior World Championships. You have to be 16 to be in the Grand Prix World Championships, unless you've won the Junior World Championships or the Red Bull Rookies, and I think you're allowed to be 15. Then you can move up into Grand Prix. But all the same, McPhee. I think what I'm trying to put across is McPhee is still a quality rider. It isn't finished for him. But you feel that other people have made their mind up a bit that it is finished for him. And with the logjam of youngsters that are behind him, there's so many good kids that are coming through at the moment. Unless McPhee has money to take to a team, and we've seen this before, where's he going to go? Maybe he'll end up in Supersport, World Supersport or something. That's going to be a tough ask as well. He's going to be moving up to the World Superbike equivalent of the middle bikes, which is the Supersport class. I don't know. Really, really awful. But all he's got to do is focus on what he's got to do. Get fit, focus, go and win some races this year, and hope that the opportunity arises at the end of 2022.
Yeah, well, we'll all be keeping our fingers crossed as well for him and all the riders as they make their return to Argentina. So now seems, Keith, like a good time to do your Insider's Guide to